Hello, folks. Thanks for joining us on Head Inside Mental Health, featuring conversations about mental health and substance use treatment with experts, advocates, and professionals from across the country sharing their thoughts and insights on the world of behavioral health care. Broadcasting on WPVM 1037, the voice of Asheville, independent commercial-free radio. I'm Todd Weatherly, your host, therapeutic consultant and behavioral health expert, and it is my pleasure to welcome my friend and recovery advocate, Mo Rohde. Mo is the operations and outreach manager at the Asheville Insight Recovery Center, where she oversees daily operations, collaborates closely with the clinical team to ensure quality and ethical care, and works directly with clients through support services and group facilitation. She is a CDAC, certified alcohol and drug counselor, and herself a person in long-term recovery. Mo is deeply passionate about helping others navigate their healing journey. Her personal and professional experience led her to Asheville, North Carolina, where she found both recovery and her calling to support others in overcoming substance use disorders. With a strong background in education and outreach, Mo actively builds relationships with treatment centers, community organizations, and recovery networks, working to expand resources and access to care for individuals seeking recovery. She's committed to bridging gaps in treatment and ensuring individuals and families receive support, education, and the guidance they need. Mo is currently pursuing her master's degree in social work at the university at UNC. Wait a minute, UNC what, Mo? UNC
UNC
Asheville?
Charlotte.
UNC
Charlotte.
Charlotte. Okay.
Yes.
See, us UNC other people, we got to stick together. UNC Charlotte, further
Yes.
strengthening her ability to advocate for and empower individuals on their recovery journey. Mo, as usual, I love seeing you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. It's always great to see you, Todd.
Well, I know that you're out traveling. Tell us where you're at right now. You're on the road doing the outreach thing. So where are you at today?
I am on the road right now. I am in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I split my time between Wilmington, North Carolina, and Asheville, where the treatment center is. And so today I am slowly making my way back across the state. So I'm in Raleigh now, and then headed to Hickory, and then back to Asheville. So just visiting some hospitals, checking in with some social workers, just connected with a great therapist out here, and seeing her new practice. So yeah, just seeing everything that's out here throughout our whole state.
Tell me a little bit, and we got a couple of things I'd like to ask you about, but tell me a little bit about that end of the outreach world. Like, when I think about it, people who come to a therapeutic consultant are trying to find resources like yours. You're trying to go to places that are looking for resources like yours, but probably don't know about them. I think one of the biggest issues we have in the treatment world is, places like hospitals and outpatient centers and private providers, they don't know what's around them. So part of your job is to make them aware that there are good resources for treatment and for people to find recovery and everything else. What does the world look like out there to you right now as you do outreach? What is it? Is there changes? Do you see positives? What are the negatives? What's it look like to you?
I think I'm very grateful to have this aspect of my role where I actually do get to go into to the hospitals and meet with therapists. I'd say hospitals specifically, going in there, they are so limited on support and resources and time that, going in. And my goal, honestly, when I go in, even from the first step of even the security guard to the, registration, I think hospitals have so much pressure right now, and I think it's very difficult across the board when people come in and need help. And my goal, especially with substance use disorders, I know for me and my own journey, until I knew about recovery, I didn't know about recovery. And so I think the same goes
Recovery, right?
Right. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know where to look, what to help. I didn't know what levels of care meant. There's so many different things. And so for me, that educational piece, just going in and just offering some kindness and a smile to folks that are really in an intense working environment, to show some appreciation and just to try to share what resources are available. Our program at Insight, we do work with private insurance, but then we also want to collect all the resources we can for folks that don't have insurance, that have Medicaid, that have Medicare, that that might be struggling with something that we're not the right fit for. And so, for me, it's like connecting those dots so that if someone needs help, I can be a resource to connect, even reaching out to you, when I have folks that you're going to be the right fit for. So it's really just it's kind of a cool perk. I get to go meet people and connect and be available so that if they have someone walk in the door and they aren't sure what to do or where to go, then I can get on the phone with them or their family and see if either I can help or if I know someone that can help. So it's really, I think right now there is also, you know, there's so many shifts. There's a lot of different resources out there. There's a lot of different things that that connecting the dots piece is really, really big. And so I'm grateful to get to do it. And I just know when I walk in, you know, I feel for folks, especially going towards my MSW and knowing people that currently are social workers in those environments, and they're working incredibly long shifts and have a lot of pressure on them, and they don't have the time to or the option to go out and visit different centers or visit different detoxes or visit different places to make recommendations of either. And so that's kind of one of the pieces that I go and do. So when I make recommendations or help folks, I actually have the information that's going to be helpful to share with them firsthand.
And that's the big piece, because that's where silos exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you've got providers, and when we speak of hospital as provider, you're talking about a social worker and a therapist and a psychiatrist. The system that they've designed for that care is not my favorite, and
Mm-hmm.
they're limited. They're limited in
Mm-hmm.
many ways, not only by resources and time, but also by the amount of service they have to provide a lot of times, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and the funding that's associated with those things. And they're serving the wide range of the public, which means they can't go anywhere. They can't
Mm-hmm.
they can't see that there's insurance-based residential treatment out there, or a PHP or an IOP, where these people can go and receive continued care, which
Mm-hmm.
largely where the rubber meets the road.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. You've done this hospitalization and maybe been sober for 3 days
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. But if you don't, I mean, the likelihood of you just picking right back up where you left off
Mm-hmm.
is like in the 90s if you don't go
Mm-hmm.
do something else for continued care.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell
Absolutely.
people all the time, if you've ended up in a hospital for either a psychiatric condition or a recovery condition or both,
Mm-hmm.
chances are very good you need more care
Absolutely.
after the
Absolutely.
hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you've got the private world that is, your private therapist and everything else. I'm often, and I don't know what your experience is, but I'm often pretty amazed by what they don't know. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they've gone through and they've gotten to school, and a lot of them may have a touch of experience working for an organization or doing something. Not
Mm-hmm.
many of them get the opportunity to do like the kind of intensive residential care or even high level PHP, like what you
Mm-hmm.
guys are at Insight.
Yeah.
And the world they know it's very similar. They become siloed, and the world they know is like, well, the worried well and people with intense conditions. And the minute they run into somebody who's got a very intense condition, they don't know what to do. And a lot of times they'll throw their hands up, like, I can't work with you.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know
Right.
where to send them. So are you finding out in the world, when you see, like, you just met this therapist that has got a practice out there, are you finding them to be, with the world talking about recovery the way that it does, are you finding them to be more educated these days? Do you think that they know, do you see them knowing more or being connected to more? Like, what is the experience you're having with private practices?
I think that it's funny because I feel like folks that do want to work specifically, even as private therapists, with substance use disorders, there is a real passion there. And then I think there is somewhat of maybe resistance for folks that don't know. But I think that it's really an asset now, and I'm noticing even in these group practices that they're wanting to make sure that they have at least one or two individuals that really do specialize in substance. And so I think that's been helpful for the whole practice, because then there is somewhat of a,
Broadening their scope.
That was one thing that really surprised me, when I started the program I'm in through UNC Charlotte. It's the distance education, so I've been able to do it virtually and in my travel, and it's been continuous for 3 years. And really, when I started, I had the ignorance, like, oh, everybody's in here has some experience or background in recovery or substances and mental health. And that was very, very inaccurate. So I think maybe, like 10%.
Everybody knows what I know, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's all about me. So, but I was really surprised by that. So it was really interesting to go in and then even to create dialogues within the cohort about, certain cases and how to even see it, from a different lens. And so it was interesting to me, that I think it really is, though, about getting out there and connecting and even sharing. Like, I'm very transparent about my own journey, and so letting people know that you can't see it, you can't assume anything, and so it's non-discriminatory. But I think I actually had gone into a hospital at one point, and I had a social worker that was like, I don't understand, we see the same folks repeatedly. And that notion of like, okay, that's a great talking point of, like, like, just like what you mentioned, that this is going to really be this crisis stabilization, this, quick couple days, even if that, at a hospital. And then what's the next step to then help that individual to not have to keep coming back repeatedly to the hospital. But yeah, so it is really interesting. And I think people are the people that I go and speak to and connect with, I think there's much more of an open-mindedness about talking about recovery. And I think, I'm sure you can agree, almost, everyone's impacted in some way or another when it comes down to it. And I think that's really what it's about, is having the conversations, and asking the questions. So.
Oh, now I get to ask you the fun, hard questions. See,
Yeah.
Little
Oh.
it's a gotcha interview. No, I'm just
All
kidding.
right. I'm here for it.
So I say this all the time, and I want to get your take on it. I don't believe that substance use, when people suffer from addiction, or suffer from, substance use disorder, as the DSM likes to call it. I don't believe that people suffer from that without suffering from mental illness. When you've achieved a level where substance use has become a real problem, when you've done things like end up in hospitals or end up in detox, those kinds of levels. I'm not talking about somebody who had binge drinking and decided they to cut it back. Like, I'm talking about a person who's really in recovery and struggles with some form of substance. That you experience that in a vacuum. That you experience it and without us being able to look deeper and say, "Hey, there's mental illness here. There's a maladaptive strategy that's been engaged to resolve something that has gone unresolved." Would you agree with that statement?
Absolutely. I think they're one and the same. I think that addiction, it's the best support of that is that removing the substances, removing the alcohol, does not simply solve the problem. And so I think that's where the support is.
Great first step.
Yeah. So there we start in that, and I had a huge amount of resistance to the process, because it was like, I need to stop and I need to do all of this work on myself. And that just seemed like outrageous, but I do, it's, all of the behaviors that, especially if there is long term or even, enough that it's that dependency, you're creating brain paths that support how do you act, how do you react, how do you, behave. And so then when you remove the substances, you have to really do so much work to retrain yourself. It's like I always say, that I look at it as, my brain is wired differently. And I really had to relearn how to use this tool and take care of it. And then the support of that is once I really invested in that, then it didn't become so much about, oh, I can't have drugs and alcohol, but it became, I've done so much work. I don't want to backtrack and I don't want to take away from that. But I wholeheartedly agree with you that it's all mental health. It's absolutely, I mean, and there's so many different cliche sayings, but it's the use is the symptom, but I definitely agree. And it's something that even continuing on, things that I have to work on and do to continue to maintain my mental health.
I don't disagree. I'm not disagreeing with the disease model. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There are definitely people in the world, and lots of them that are, you know, genetically predisposed,
Mm-hmm.
um, or biologically predisposed to end up with an addiction. We've got addiction in our family. It follows,
Mm-hmm.
definitely does.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a person who has to be more careful than another person, or there's a person who fell into it, and it's like, well, we look in the past and we go, we know where that came from.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of theory. There's a lot of theories about, generational trauma,
Mm-hmm.
the epigenetics that's involved in addictions, and for the public, we'll do this very quickly, but my favorite analogy for this is a slinky. If you take a
Mm-hmm.
slinky and it goes, it's like, this is your genetic code, right? But your genetic code, what makes you is not all of it. Your genetic code has, like, your grandma and your great grandma and your grandfather and all these people, they're all mixed in. Your epigenome is what is the thing that selects what part of the code it starts to pick up on. It's like, well, it's going to be blue eyes, and it's going to be,
Mm-hmm.
this skin color and this hair color and this everything else. And maybe it's going to be, some genetic condition that this person had, or a disease that runs in the family, or something else. And what we're seeing, of course, as we study these epigenetics, is that your environment has an influence over these things as a person grows. The way that you care for yourself, and even into adulthood. And I talked with a doc even most recently. It's like, when you start to have a person's brain chemistry change, and they
Mm-hmm.
start to become more stable, and they start to get to a place where recovery is taking hold, we believe, everybody believes, that the epigenetics is making a shift, where it's
Mm-hmm.
making a change in the way that, this person is becoming healthier, they're becoming more stable, and it's a very different kind of scene now than it was before, and the epigenome is starting to change. So this disease model is very fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads me to this question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you reference, like, there's all these things I need to do, and I don't want to backtrack and everything else. Your process in recovery, like, when your recovery story, and you don't have to give us all the nitty-gritty details, but if you were to kind of mirror image yourself prior to recovery and yourself now, what would you say are the kind of biggest pieces that stick out to you, that changed, that evolved, that took place for that, in that journey that you took?
Oh, that's a big question. It's been a journey. Um, I mean, I think my temperament, I think I am it's still is funny when people will say, "Oh, you have such a good energy," or I'm probably not always calm. That might not be accurate, but things that pertain to, I would say, temperament, even personality, are very different. I I was just such a reactive being. Do you know, I was a defense mechanism. I was so reactive. But I think, man, I think there's so many things that are different. I For me, I feel like the ability to learn who I am and what my values are, and some of the things that were bypassed because I really did start turning to drugs and alcohol at a young age, even though I was able to maintain school and it was almost like living a double
Like you were
life.
normal? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was class president of my high school, 525. Do you know what I mean? I went to college. I did so many things, but I really did rely on alcohol to make me feel comfortable around people. I think that created this false sense of who I was. And so I'd say, you know, just finding my authentic self in this process, and then feeling truly like what you see today is who I am, and it's consistent, living in integrity, and you have the steps, and you have the spiritual principles, and you have, therapy is a big one for me. And so there's so many different pieces, but I think even when I mentioned that in the backtrack piece, and I know there are so many different debates of, disease model, it's not a disease. The important thing for me, and I tested this over time, is, abstinence is my path. And even where I am today, I still credit the fact that it's because I'm not putting drugs or alcohol in, and whether or not that, it could be different if I were to consume something now. That's kind of like what I was talking about before. I've done so much work that's not a risk that I'd be willing to take. So that's the only concern I have sometimes in some of the different arguments. Is I know for me, as an addict, as an alcoholic, to be told if it was more of an environmental situation or things at the time, then my brain would say, awesome, let me fix all that, and then I can get back to my drinking and using, like
Right.
that's like what comes into my head when I hear it. So that's like, so for me, it's like, yeah, anyway, I'll stop. Does that answer?
Oh, no, yeah, it really does, because this piece about, you're talking about how your body and your mind, and even to a large extent your spirit, responds to a substance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all of us are, there are poisons out in the world, right? Some of us
Mm-hmm.
are allergic to things. I like the
Mm-hmm.
allergic, and
Mm-hmm.
you happen to have a specific allergy to alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an existential allergy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's this thing that you can't be clear and authentic about who you are if that substance is in your system, because it starts to
Right.
throw all the firings off and everything, your clarity off and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think even it's funny as you were saying that, I think it took a lot of time. I would never have wanted to admit that I was sensitive. That sounds so weak, but but sensitivity, that's where, in learning to be free of, all substances, having to feel feelings, having to handle challenging situations and irritating people and uncomfortable situations and uncomfortable conversations. I think even more so that the substances would throw me off. I think that now that I'm able to handle and do these things and don't need that escape. So for me, I look at it more as, I had to really throw away the idea of, I know what's next. I know what I'm going to do with my life. I know what's coming, and I don't. And once I got more comfortable with not knowing, and open to what's next, like, I'm excited to see what's next. And I know, though, if I don't keep, like, staying awake and alert. And let me tell you, I got sober right before COVID. So I'm like, man, like, I really woke up at a there's a lot going on here. Like, this is
There's a lot going on,
wild.
right?
I might have wanted to, skip another year. But, you wake up and you realize, like, life is hard. There's crazy things going on. There's, things, but you're awake and you get to experience it. And that's the piece for me is I lost so many experiences with my kids, in relationships with my family, because I couldn't handle how difficult life was, or I didn't want to. And so I took something to not feel. And now that I can feel, it's like, I don't want to miss out on anything else.
Well, I mean, you decided something. You decided like, not only am I okay with life, I'm excited about it. And anything that takes me away from this life that I've become excited about is not something
Hmm.
I'm willing to. It's not something that risk I'm willing to take. It's not something I'm willing to do. And
Hmm.
I really, because I think it normalizes for people. I really like making the cross comparisons to medical conditions. Like
Hmm.
I have gout, which
Hmm.
is so did my granddad and my dad.
Hmm.
Like it's generational. It's like
Hmm.
I can't touch shrimp. Like I can't touch
Yeah.
it. I'm not allergic. I'm not allergic to it. It's not like I'll have an anaphylactic shock condition, but if I put it in my body, I will be
Hmm.
limping within 12 hours. And it's
Wow.
like my body just can't handle it. And
Hmm.
I don't like being immobile. I don't like
Hmm.
being compromised by my, health condition. I don't like the
Hmm.
amount of pain that you have to endure as a result of it. And
Yeah.
so I don't eat it. Like
Hmm.
I really like it. It's a food that I always enjoyed before that came on, but I don't eat it because I know the consequences that will follow. And it's
Hmm.
like, so because we do all this stuff where it's like, well, you just said this a minute ago, which is really interesting to me. It's like, well, you can't have any of it. That means you're weak. And I think people get this messaging going, and
Hmm.
it's like, well, I can handle things, and if I can't handle something, that means I'm weak, and I'm not weak, and like
Uh-huh.
there's this identity crisis that happens as a result of it. It's like, no, you are sensitive to a substance in the world,
Hmm.
and it will cause you, I mean, talk about threatening your life. I'm talking about threatening my mobility, but you're talking about
Hmm.
threatening your existence. It's like you should be super sensitive to whether or not you're doing something like that to yourself. And
Hmm.
I mean, I think some of the stigma is going away, but it's not gone for sure.
Hmm.
And that the kind of educating the rest of the world about what people really truly endure in recovery.
Hmm.
And I love this message that you're giving, which is, I don't want to miss out on anything. And this
Hmm.
causes me to miss out on stuff.
Hmm.
That's just brilliant to me. It doesn't matter whether we call it a disease or what we call it. It's like, this makes me
Right.
miss out on stuff and miss
Yeah.
relationships and screw up things and do all kinds of stuff. And I'm not going to risk that because I want to, be with my partner and my children and my family and my everybody else. And I want to
Hmm.
experience that as richly as I possibly can, which, whether you were in recovery or not, I think is a great outlook on life in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, what is it that what is it you're looking forward to? You're in this as a career now. Like you're not just doing your own
Yeah.
recovery. You're responsible for working with other people in recovery and giving them this message. Like, what do you look
Yeah.
forward to in your work?
Man, I mean, first I want to just add, to be fully transparent, getting to the point where I'm saying this to you, it took several treatment centers. It took several, relapses, returning to use. And so I always like to, it's hard. It's not easy, and somebody had said to me once, it's like learning to go on red and stop on green. And it's like it's, you know what I mean, like, then, and I just want to, like, throw that in there as a disclaimer, because I don't ever claim to be like, oh yeah, and here we are today. So, but the not giving up, and, like, so leading that into what do I look forward to in my work and in my job. I love where I work in Set Recovery Center. Lisa and Adam McIsaac, who are the owners. They're both in long-term recovery. They're amazing people. and they helped me in my own journey. And so to be in a space, where I work with people who I care about, I know they care about who they're helping, and I get to support really from before people even come in to our center, or even helping people that don't come to our center, but talking to people that might be picking up the phone for the very first time and knowing how hard that is to do, and just being kind and being compassionate and telling them how courageous it is to pick up the phone. I think, you know, um, that's a gift for me to be able to show up for someone. When I had people that answered the phone, I will remember the nurses and the case managers and the techs that worked at places when I was at my lowest, that were just simply kind to me. And that is what breaks stigma. That is what allows you to say, hey, this person cares about me and wants to help me. And that is the time when that kindness shows through, and you really feel like somebody loves me and I can do this. And so that gift of now getting to show up for other people that way, or when they're struggling, getting on the phone. I was a very, very difficult client. I was not easy. Okay. I was not easy. So when sometimes there's
Willful.
some,
Do we call that
there we
willful? Is that
go.
what
There
that?
we go. Yes. Yes. It's still, yeah, I still am a bit willful, but,
Slightly
you
willful?
know,
Yeah.
slightly. But, when someone's struggling or angry or having a bad day, like getting on, and I also, I taught eighth grade for 10 years. And so, there's so much of like, it's wild, like getting to work with, and I say it about myself too, like there's a lot of parallels between that adolescent brain and being in early recovery, and that push pull of like, leave me alone, don't tell me what to do, I don't know what to do, I need help, I don't want this but I need it. And it's so, there's so many things that when I get to talk to, even a client that's struggling, it's never like, listen, what did you do that for, what's going on, but it's like, hey, what's going on, what do you need, like what, because you know these like behaviors come up, and it's so much more, it's very, just to be able to support someone and talk someone through a rough moment, or just even say it's okay to not be okay, like we care, you're safe, and it's okay, and that's sometimes just all somebody needs to hear. And slowly I've built, I've got my CDAC, and then I will graduate in May with my
Hey,
MSW. And
congratulations.
so
That's
thank
awesome.
you. Yeah. So I'll go for my LCAS, and then, register to start working on my LCSW. And I've been a part of Insight since, before we opened, and I'm so grateful to be a part of what it is, and just want to keep bringing what I'm learning and gaining to what we're creating there. So it's a really special place.
It really is. Um, well, and it's just what you speak to about doing the work. Like you got sober and you did a lot of work to get sober, and you're in this kind of really great place. I think from my view, it's a really great place. And
Yeah.
your response to that is to keep doing the work.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's there's a saying that's like, what do you do before enlightenment? Chop wood, carry water. What do you do after
Yeah.
enlightenment? You chop wood and carry water.
You keep doing it.
Like
You keep
you
doing
just
it.
keep doing the work.
Hmm.
I think that I say this sometimes, and I do mean it. It sounds like it's a little flippant, but in some ways, a person in recovery has it a little easier than a person who's not in recovery,
Hmm.
because they are forced in many ways, and a lot of times early on,
Hmm.
to have to face some demons, to
Hmm.
have to really get real with who they are, and to like go and people, I've had people talk about this. It's like somebody does something awful and it turns out they suffer from a mental health condition, a substance use condition, and they've got all this stuff going on, and they've done something wrong and gotten involved in the law, and you're like, sounds like they need treatment, and somebody chimes in because people do this. And like, oh, you just want to send them to go get coddled and everything else. They just get to go to treatment and they get to have all these nice things. It's just like I said, to tell you what, I want you to submit yourself to
Hmm.
60 to 90 days of
Hmm.
doctors and licensed clinicians circling around you every day for all of you, for as many hours as you can endure, to talk about the deep-seated darkness that you've got going on in your life, where you're going to have to be vulnerable and expose everything that is precious and dear to you. Does that sound like sound like something that's easy and simple? Does that sound like coddling to you? Because most people I know, if given that opportunity, would run immediately for the hills. It is by
Yeah,
far one of the most courageous things a person can ever do in their life, without question.
absolutely.
And a person in recovery has to go do that. And then they come out with all the, if they take it to heart, right? Then they
Yeah,
come out with a lot of this like, oh, wow. And now you get to begin this journey of like, and by the way, all that work is great for recovery. Congratulations, thumbs up. Now you've embarked on a methodology that is incredible for a person becoming this kind of whole being, which is really the
yes,
point in the end.
yes,
You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. Hmm.
the rest of us, for people who are not in recovery, you have to commit to your own work. And there are people out there who do that. A lot of people can just ride in under the surface and don't have to become aware. I say it like there's a lot of people out there that never get out past a whole lot past concrete operations. They're not
Yeah,
thoughtful, they're not thinking about things, they're not digging in and doing their own work. And they're in a position where they're not having to be, which is why I think we have all this, conflict and
yeah,
separation in our world today. But I think that people like you go into these environments, and just the spirit of you, whether a person's in recovery or not, you're
yeah,
giving people something to look at. And what you're doing for clients to come in, you give them something that's like, hey, here's a person on the other side of this. I like that person. They're authentic. They seem cool, and they're sober. Like
yeah, yeah.
I think that your story gives people hope, and I'm just excited to have you out there doing the work.
Thank you. One thing that you said too, you're learning this process, and I will always remember initially you're like, oh, this is like forever, even how you said, I
Right.
already said like doing the work, right? But I have a sponsor who just turned 79. Actually, today is her birthday. She's 79 today.
Wow.
And I think she has 40 years, and I may have misquoted that slightly, but she continues to do work. And the way that I now, in the last year, really the last couple of years, started to see, it's not even that you have to do this forever. It's I always have a way to work on a conflict in my life to change how I'm feeling. Like there is always something that I now know how to do to work on myself, and that is a gift. It's huge. Initially it's like, what are you asking of me, but further down it's like, wow, like, okay, I don't like how this is going in my life. I don't So okay, I know, like you said, I've learned these resources. I have people to call and talk to, and there's something I can do about it. And that's where then that continued growth and change and involvement comes into play. And I also, really quick, when you talked about the courage, and this was something I shared with you previously, and I like to just share, and I would like to share it on here, is for women, having to make a decision to go to treatment when my children were young, 5, 4, they were 4, 6, and 7. I have 3. The first time I had to leave for treatment, and talk about stigma and shame and being away, or leaving. And I had to leave more than once. And there was actually, an individual that shared with me that, when women in the military leave to fight for their country, that they're applauded, and that it's considered, like they're brave. They're going out
Honorable.
and
Right.
honorable. Thank you. And she said to me, what you're doing is the most brave and courageous thing you can be doing. And you're going away from them to fight for your life so that you're going to be available and accessible and present for theirs. And so I share that because there are so many things that's like, I can't do this, I can't do that. But when we look at that, timeline, and whether it is 30, 60, 90, however much time, to step out, to give yourself that space to heal and to work through these things so that you can then, be present for your family, your loved ones, your children. That was something that really stuck with me. And I think I also shared with you, my teenage kids will from time to time stop and thank me for leaving as many times as I had to be present and available for them. And they need me today, and they have their own things that they're going through and struggling, and so to have that availability. But those were just two things I wanted to.
I mean, that it sounds really hard to me. And I think that there are probably lots of people that will make the excuse, right? They'll say, well, I can't do it because of a job or a spouse or loved ones and children and everything else. It's like getting help is the most important thing that you can do when you know that you need it. And taking those steps is one of the most courageous things a person does. But I also think that it's important that you give this message. It's like, you can do this, and you should.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, Mo, you and I have known each other now for a few years.
Yeah.
And I always love spending time with you. I love to hear the courageousness of your story. I love just sitting and hanging out with the authentic person that you are. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing with Insight Recovery there here in town. And I hope that you travel safe as you're out there working in the world and meeting all the people. And I hope that you get back on the show and share more with us next time. But until then, this has been Head Inside Mental Health. Mo Rohde's been on the show with us today with Insight Recovery. Great to see you. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
I feel so lonely and lost in here. I need to find my way home.